Hello, MJ lovers. Today we are going to learn how to draft and cut this beautiful dress. So we start with our measurements, the bust, waist, and the hip measurements. And then, as usual, we give our 1 inch allowance at the top. This gives us enough space at the end of drafting to give allowances on the pattern. Now we mark our cross back of 15 divided by 2, which is 7. And then we mark our neck depth. The front depth is 3 inches, and then the back is 1.5. Unfortunately, it didn't show on camera, but I drafted both together. We are going to use one pattern to cut the front and back of this dress. Okay, so now we measure our shoulder to apex. That's 10.5. We plot it at the other side so it can give us a straight line. And then the shoulder to waist is 17. We are plotting that as well. And then we strike straight lines through. Guys, if you're enjoying this, give us a thumb and click on the subscribe button to support us. Forgive my voice, guys. I'm almost losing my voice. Now, we'll divide all our body parts into 4, a quarter each. So 37 divided by 4, 9.25. The waist divided by 4 is 8. The hip divided by 4 is 9.75. So we are going to plot them and then give an ease allowance of 3 inches. Ease of 3. This is a loose dress. On the waist as well, we give an ease of 3 inches. And then we come to give our shoulder drop of 1 inch. That's from the shoulder tip to the neck point. The next thing is to find a chest line. So you divide 36 by 6.28 plus 1, giving us 6.8789 and approximation of 7, or your cross chest measurement divided by 2. So 14 divided by 2, and that gives us 7. So you go with whichever works for you. And then we find the midpoint of our shoulder to apex, which is 10.5. So the midpoint is 5.25. Okay. And on that 5.25 is where we are going to find our 7. And now we come up from the armhole to a chest line 1.5. We are supposed to strike a straight line through, but because of the calculations I did here, forgive me, I'm going to just draw something short that we need for our armhole curve. Now on these 3 points, we are going to join together to form our armhole. Okay, but because we are drafting both the front and back on the same pattern, you know the front armhole goes in a bit deeper than the back, and so we are giving it ½ inch excess for our back dress. Okay, now you join the lines through from the chest to the waist. Okay, so we get our dress length of 42, and at this point we are not getting it on this paper. It's too short, so we have to join it. Now we mark our 42, mark 42 at both sides so it can give us a straight line. And then from the waist to our hip is 9 inches. This 9 inches is a standard measurement. It fits majority of body sizes. So on that 9, we draw a straight line through, and then we mark our hip measurements. So at this point, our hip divided by 2 plus the extra of 3 inches that we gave to the waist and our bust. And we are taking this 4 measurements to our hem. Okay, and then you add an extra 2 inches. You can add 3, 4, depending on how you want the dress to be shaped. Okay, so let's draw a hip curve and join it to the hem. At this point, I made a mistake without realizing, and so at the end of the whole drafting, the correction will be done because I ignored the 2 inches that we added at the end of it. So now let's add ½ inch allowance for joining, for stitching. Okay, and then we are going to add half to the necklines as well. The upper part is the back neckline, the lower one is the front neckline. So same thing for the armhole as well. We give it ½ inch for stitching. Then now we are giving 4 inches below, 4 inches for our neck slit, and then we give ½ inch to both the front and back necks. The upper part is the back neck and the lower part is the front neck. ½ inch for both. We need to curve it well into our half at the top, the stitching allowance at the top. Great. So now we cut out. Make sure you cut the neck on the first line, the first curve. That's our allowance. At this point, I've noticed the mistake and I'm correcting it. Okay. Okay, so you're holding it down. So this is our front and back pattern together. Now we are going to cut on the fabric. So you lay your fabric on fold and then you cut the back pattern first because we need the other parts out before we can cut the front part. So you cut your back first. Apologies for the shifting. Be careful if your space is small like mine and you want to do shifts, because if you are not careful, your paper will shift on the fabric. Okay guys, make sure you like, subscribe, drop a comment to support us. Now we cut out the back neck, we cut out the back armhole. That was ½ inch. So if you noticed how I cut the back armhole, it still had the ½ inch allowance that we need for our joining. So make sure you don't cut that out, especially at the armhole part. Now we are pinning it on our fabric, also on fold. This is a loose dress, so there is not going to be any zip attached. So it was at the end of the recording I realized some parts weren't covered in the video. That's the cutting of the collar and then the cutting of the guarded part. So the collar is 1.5 inch and then the guarded part is 7 inches in length, and as for the depth of it, it depends on you, how much fabric you have and how full you want your gathering. And then also make sure you cut your lining same size as the front and back body, and when you are done, you turn the front slit with the lining before joining the shoulders of both front and back together. And then when you are done, you fuse in your collar and then you add the lower part to it and you are done. Guys, make sure to like and subscribe so you get notified on our next video. Also drop a comment if this video helped you.